Well, g'day, Max here again. Welcome back to the shop. So let's finish off this apron. We've got a couple of little things to knock off on it and we'll get it bolted back up into the lathe. So we'll just focus on the half nuts, getting them in. And I've already got the cover on. We'll swing it down, take a look. The cover that goes into the input drive. And you've already seen that cover on it if you watched the couple of episodes ago when I made it out of an old spaghetti tin or baked bean tin. So we'll get our half nuts in and our wick oil feed in, and then we're pretty well done. We'll get it bolted up. So that's all our cover plate all on, finished. Our drive's all in. I did take some dimensions of the worm drive inside here and the bronze gear, so I'll make one of them up in the future. I'll have to get a 1.5 module cutter to do that, and if I need to make a worm I'll have to wait till I've got the big lathe up and running, because that will cut a module worm. So the half nuts, I've cleaned them up. If you ever have your half nuts out, get a seal pick, sharp object, and just run it in the grooves down the threads. And you'll be surprised, there's a bit, I've just cleaned it, how much material, little shavings, get embedded into the teeth of these, because of course when these clamp together onto the lead screw, it's got quite a bit of force when you clamp them together, and any small bits of chip will embed into these and wear away, score away at your lead screw. So these little particles get jammed in, embedded into the cast iron there, so just pays to give them a good going over with a seal pick, just to get all the little, there's little bits still coming out of this one. I've been over these a couple of times and given them a really good going over. So, okay, well let's get them mounted up. Okay, so we've got our two pins there that they actuate the half nuts. So we have our upper and a lower. Now, we did stamp these when we disassembled it, and this one's stamped with an L on the end there for lower. So just give it a bit of a So we make sure we engage the slot in the rear of the half nut with the lower pin on the actuator lever there. And that will work like that. Likewise the same with the upper half. Okay. Then we have our dovetail guide that goes in. Now, two cap screws hold it in. These are cap screws or bolts. Yeah, I can't remember. I might have to go back on a previous video and check on these. I've got two cap screws left over and two bolts. And they both fit. Okay, let me just go back and verify which ones actually go in here, and I'll bring you back. I've got a bit of memory loss there. Must be getting old. Okay, we've sorted that out. So, okay, these are the retainer screws for the dovetail there. So we screw these in, but we only very lightly nip them at this stage, because what we have on the end, we have another adjustment. We have two, one there and one there. There's two grub screws which go in, and they come up against the side of this dovetail slide, and that takes all the slop, any play out of here. So just very carefully till it sort of seats it, just till it touches. I can just feel a slight drag on them, because you don't want any slop in your half nuts, otherwise you'll end up getting a bit of premature wear where you don't want it. Nip them up. I can just feel a very slight drag on that. It feels good. This I will tighten in fully. Recheck it. Feels good. Now our adjusters, we'll just give them a little more of a nip down, just very slightly, so they're not loose in there and fall out. Now that's feeling good. I like that. I don't like them too tight. I mean, I like to be able to feel the engagement as the nuts come down. Because when I screw cut, as it's coming up to the number, I'll come down on the lever and I'll feel it just skimming the crest of the lead screw. Just a little bit of weight, and then once the crests don't light up anymore, she just drops in. That's my method anyway. Now there's a spring and a ball to go in the end here. There's that many holes in the end of this. So it's that one there. There's that one there. Remember, the other spare hole was for the thread dial indicator. Now this is the detent ball for the screw cutting lever. So here, just keeps it detented into the unlocked position. So that's all it, just screw it in till you feel the detent feels good. And that's good. So we have our oil fill plug. And there we have it. Completed apron. All our modifications carried out. Oh, nearly. We just have to put our wick in. Remember the wick to draw the oil up into here. So we'll sit that in and meet you over at the lathe. So lastly, our two screws that were in the end and our drain plug underneath, we put them in with a bit of Loctite 567 pipe sealant, because the oil level sits higher than the screws. Okay, so to install our apron, I've just set it underneath the saddle. It's just on a block of timber, so I've just got to lift it up and put all the screws in. So the easiest way to do that, as with any gearbox, any housing of that sort of nature, my method is I get a long bolt, I drop it down the hole, and I start the thread into the threaded hole where it's going to go. If I had two, I'd put one in the other end, but I've only got one, so for this little thing, one will be fine. So it's just a matter of then lifting it up into position. Getting one cap screw started. Okay, so I can take my guide bolt out now. We put our other cap screw in. Just take a bit of weight. Make sure our, well, we can't make sure our, why have we got no windy? Oh, I see, we're not up yet. Bit to go. There we have it. Got some winding action happening now. Just a light nip. Beautiful. Just the minimal backlash in that, that's good. Oh, there's nothing we can do to control that anyway. We have a little bit more down in this area. Ah, it's about the same. It's okay, so we just pull these cap screws down. You don't need to go crazy on them. Now our dowels, we have two dowels still there, so we'll just give them a bit of a tap down. And we're there. So now we install our lead screw and our feed shaft. So I'll get them cleaned down and get them mounted up. While you've got your lead screw off and you've cleaned it before you reinstall it, it's also a good opportunity to set it up on a couple of rollers and just have a bit of an eyeball down it and see how it's going for straightness. As you can see, there's probably 5 or 10 thou in this one, so that's nothing. Especially I can get the shaft, and if my rollers are going to move, but I can move it up and down just with a bit of light thumb pressure. You know, 20 thou without. There's nothing in it, so it's a good time while you got it off to check them and give them a really good clean and inspection. And of course the same with the feed shaft. I mean, you can't do a full revolution of the feed shaft due to the keyway. That's not too bad there. There's not enough in that to worry about, so we can install these back in the machine. We'll just have a quick look at the rollers that I use. Now these you don't need to go out and buy the flash rollers. These are just ones I've made up, and all I've done is had this bracket. This bracket used to be actually one piece I cut in half and just machined flat face on the inside, nut and bolt, and a couple of small ball bearings. The bracket's out of a Caterpillar front end loader. It's part of an armrest, a sliding armrest mechanism, hence all these other holes here for the adjustment for the armrest. So yeah, it was just a cheap and easy way to get a set of rollers. It's as good as any expensive set, providing you pay attention and keep your holes exactly the same height and centre distance. You will not have a problem. No. Okay, it's time to install our lead screw. Good thing I've got enough room in the shed here. It's in the walls. Last thing you want is a wall banged up right next to the end of your lathe. So just very gently feeding through and just start it in the collar. I've only just got it in just a little bit so we can line up for the roll pin. Now, I had a pin punch which was a neat fit through there. Here it is. And of course, in true Asian fashion, I'm going to rotate it half a turn because the drilling for the roll pin where the mount goes only fits one way. So I'll just leave our pin punch in there for now. And we'll put the feed shaft in and then the end block. Okay, feed shaft. Make sure we get it in the right way around. There's a keyway we've got to feel for inside the drive worm behind the apron. Let's see, it goes through there, and our hole lines up. Okay, so our bearing block on the end is the next thing. So a little bit of oil in the bearing area, a little bit of oil on the bore of the hole. Make sure we've got it mounted the right way around. There's a couple of dowel pins we have to line up. That's it. And as always, make sure things still move while you're tightening them up, putting them together. This lathe used to have a third shaft. That was to operate the rotary switch. It used to be sitting down in here, and your forward and reverse was off a lever here. It's using the lathe one day, and all this banging and crackling came out. The switch, all the smoke came out of the switch. The motor started making terrible noises, so I think the switch failed and caused the failure of the motor. So I put another rotary switch, but I've just mounted it up on top of the headstock. It's not in an ideal position, but it's fine. We'll move it to a better spot one day. So, okay, we've still got movement here, so we give those a good nip down. Okay, we'll get our roll pins in. Okay, so for our roll pins, I'm just using a neat pin punch that fits through the bore. So that ensures me that our holes are lined up. I'll just smooth them out without moving anything. Just give him a gentle tap in with a hammer. Just like woodwork, hammering in the nail. Not really. Check the alignment of our feed shaft. That one fits in there okay. If it was like woodwork, it would have split by now. Make sure we're through flush both ends. Job's done. Okay, we'll just get a bit of oil in the other end. Everything's nice and free. Our screw cutting engages. Yep. Feed. Yep. Longitude. Oh, that's our cross feed. We can't check that. It's all good. Okay, that's that part completed. One thing I noticed when I did swap the dial over to this side, I've only just picked up on it now, is because of the casting that comes out and obscures the dial. I'm going to have to make a spacer just to space the dial out so we get full view of the bezel, the dial. So that's not a biggie, quick easy fix. So. Okay, the next part of the puzzle, we have our nut for the cross slide. Now this has a adjustment feature on it, so they've cut down part of the nut and put a cap screw in, and this allows the backlash to be taken out of the nut. Now cutting it down, they've left one full thread, not much, but to adjust for the backlash. So what we do is we install this on the shaft. It's the left hand thread. I'm not going to wind it all the way back and forth now, but I've already done it. And we just check the backlash at the ends and in the middle, just to assess any wear on the thread. So this seems not too bad. So we've had a good close inspection of this. Now there's a thrust bearing just there. There's no play in that. So adjustment for that, I've never adjusted it on this one, but my guessing is you slacken off that, well, there's a nut here and an Allen key screw, cap head screw in there, so there'd be an adjuster inside to take the, I'm assuming, to take any end play out of less bearing, but there's absolutely nothing in this one. So we can go ahead and install this. So we'll just put a bit of extra oil on the bearing. This bearing, I think, gets lubricated from this oil port, bell bearing oil port here, which will lubricate all the way through that shaft. So we'll just actually put a bit of oil on the, just up here and on the shafts on this end. We just get everything a bit oily. Just add more of a bit of a rust corrosion preventative. So he goes in the hole. And we have two cap screws to mount in underneath. Yeah, there's no need for me to strip this handle part down, as realistically it hasn't done enough work yet and there's no play in it. Everything appears to be, everything's functioning good. So, snug those down. Now, our nut, when we install our nut, The adjuster goes to the rear of the lathe. That way you can access it from an Allen key at the back here. So remembering it's the left hand thread. Just checking there's a little bit of play there. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take it to the very end of the thread where the nut never goes. That way we're checking on a good part of the thread. I'm just going to adjust this up a little bit. There is a little bit of play there, so we're just going to nip this Allen key up a little bit. I'll run it the full length of the thread. We're getting hardly anything in the middle there. You don't want it tight. And up this end. You can feel it starting to tighten up right at the very end here. But it is making it all the way to the end. In its general working area, feels good, so I'm going to let that go. So I'll put a bit of oil on the shaft while we've got it here. Just run it up and down its entire length. That's really good through there, there's nothing in that. Right, really happy with that. Okay, so the next part will be the cross slide and the gib. So we'll get that cleaned up and mount it up.